In this short video, I'm going to talk about the process of storyboarding, sometimes referred to as wireframing. Now, there are people who would say they're two separate things, but for the context of this video, I'm going to refer to them as basically the same thing. So let's go ahead and get started. What is storyboarding? Well, storyboarding is the process of defining regions and hierarchy to assist you when you're laying out your content. It's used in a variety of fields, including web design, designing e-learning courses. Any kind of interactive design project is using wireframing and storyboarding. It's a very important part of the process. So here's a simple example of a storyboard. If you were setting up a website, or this could even be for a slide design, the top section is usually referred to as the header because that's what people see first, followed by the body, which is really the main content of the site or the slide. And the bottom section is the footer, where any additional text links might be, copyright information, disclaimers, things like that. Things that need to be there but are not the main focus. So why storyboard? Well, storyboarding is useful for determining how a user interacts with your website or your slide or your e-learning course. Here's an example of a drop-down menu as it might appear in a wireframe. So this is a website. I've got a navigation bar here in the center that has home, our team, services, and contact. But you can tell by looking at this that the user has pressed the services button, and now it's showing you the drop-down menu items that will appear in real time when someone does click that services tab. So how do you go about storyboarding? Well, most people start on paper and then create the storyboards or wireframes digitally. So mapping everything out with pen and paper, pencil and paper, whatever you're comfortable with. And then once you have all of that ironed out, all of the issues, then you can recreate it digitally. Now, there are a variety of ways you can create it on the computer, and here are a few examples. Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, and a variety of other desktop applications and online services as well. For the context of this example, I'm going to recommend PowerPoint because most people have PowerPoint. Not everyone knows Illustrator or Photoshop. So just using gray boxes in PowerPoint is an easy way to do this. I take off the stroke and I take off the shadow as well for mine so that they're very clean and flat. But you can set them up however you like. But I do recommend PowerPoint as a universal tool that you can use to create your wireframes and storyboards. Notice that storyboarding or wireframing is done in grayscale with no added color. At this level, remember, we're more focused on how everything performs and not paying attention so much to what it's going to look like. That comes later. So in both of these examples, I'm using wireframing, but I prefer the bottom one because I'm a visual person. I find this one a little bit easier to look at, but both of these are technically correct. So feel free to experiment. Here I'm showing an example of two separate Navbars, basically the same information but just set up differently. One of them is individual buttons and the bottom one is just one bar where the buttons are connected. So I'm showing them in two separate ways, but again you can tell by both of them that the services button has been activated. Remember, no visuals at this stage, just boxes that have a brief explanation of what's going to be in them. So for example, a logo. If the logo is a circle, if it's a square, it's okay to put that shape in, just again to give a better visual. And if you're using any images, try to get an approximate size of the image, maybe approximate ratio of the box, and then just put in there a brief description of it. Now here's one I'm working on that's much more complex where you can see I'm using different shades of gray. You don't need to go this detailed. Whether you go simpler or slightly more detailed as I'm doing here, it doesn't matter. The basic idea is that you're mapping out all of the issues, getting rid of anything that doesn't work properly, get a nice clean design before you proceed. Much easier to fix it at this stage than once you've actually started building your site or building your slides.